Hi, welcome to episode 18 of Talk About the Passion. How you doing? Good? That's good. Apologies for the unannounced break. I took a brief break from releasing new episodes to catch up on life a little. But here I am again with a brand new episode. I have a few done already, and I'm scheduled to record 3 over the next week and a half. So the ball is certainly still rolling over here. And speaking of that, I'd like to just take a second to thank all of the guests who have been on here so far. Every one of you has been a unique and great guest, and obviously if it wasn't for you, this podcast wouldn't be very interesting. So thanks for taking time out of your life to hang out and do this with me. Talk About the Passion is on social media. If you search for Talk About the Passion podcast, you should be able to find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Same goes for wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can find me there and subscribe if you like what you hear, and then you won't miss any new episodes. Also, if you or someone you know would like to be on this podcast, please send me a message on Facebook or Twitter, and we can set something up. Okay, so let's get to today's episode. Jonah Jenkins is a friend I was hoping to get on here at some point, and he was kind enough to invite me over to his place to talk about music. And if you're not familiar with the bands Jonah's been in, I definitely recommend all of them. The most famous one is most definitely Only Living Witness, who released 2 great records and a few 7-inches. To me, they were like a perfect marriage of hardcore and metal. And, his vocals and lyrics on those releases are pretty awesome. And Milligram are another one. I'd recommend their entire catalog. They have 2 full lengths and a couple of EPs. Their record, This is Class War, is that's probably a top 5 record from Boston for me, easily. It's just one of those records that runs you over and punches you in the face repeatedly, and it's a pretty awesome album. Milltown has some music you can find online, mostly on YouTube, and they did a pretty awesome cover of Jumping Someone Else's Train by The Cure. And Jonah gets into what happened with that band and those recordings, as well as the other projects he's been involved in. The current band he's had for quite a while now is Rawradarwar, who are just this loud, angry, in-your-face, hardcore band that, to me reminds me of Discharge, Celtic Frost, Siege, Septic Death, that kind of stuff. You get the picture. And they actually do a pretty amazing cover of Just Sit There by the Crumbsuckers. All right, so let me stop there and just get to this episode. So thanks for listening, and here's me and Jonah Jenkins. Thanks. All right, so I'm here with my friend Jonah Jenkins, and we're going to talk about music and life and whatever else. And so, where did you grow up, sir?
I grew up in southern New Hampshire, in a little town called Litchfield. Mm-hmm. It's about a mile wide and 14 miles long, right along the Merrimack River, mm-hmm. Nestled between glorious Manch Vegas and Hudson.
Yeah.
It was pretty much a farming community, and didn't have our own high school or our own post office, so we kind of went to Hudson for that.
Yeah. And what did you do for entertainment there as a kid?
Got harassed.
Yeah.
Skateboarded.
Yeah.
I lived in Hudson for a bit, so I lived near a nice big parking lot where I could skateboard very poorly and listen to music and just escape reality.
Yeah.
I worked at a nearby tennis club called Topspin, mm-hmm. and I would just have my headphones on all the time, and I think that was actually where I first saw, for instance, the video for the Cult, She Sells Sanctuary, and that was pretty game-changing for me.
Yeah. What? So way early on, how did you get into music? Did you have?
Yeah, my mom was a musician, starting at age, 15, 16. She started a band called The Girls out in Westboro, Mass, and she's always a vocalist, and so she collected a bunch of records, and she was in a bunch of bands, and she ended up, like, her most prestigious things were like singing in Europe as a soloist, but also she was Jonathan Richman's vocal coach after the Modern Lovers started to catch some, get some momentum going. She was friends with all those folks, and then when they broke up, she kind of stayed friends with Jonathan all those years, and she always played records for me, sang to me, and I remember being 4 years old and her playing Rubber Soul for me.
Yeah.
And first time I ever heard any song in another language, so Michelle became one of my favorite songs. Just I remember singing along to a lot of those songs, and just really good memories. My parents also had a big funny custom van, rug on the inside, bed and a fridge and an awesome 8-track player and speakers in the back, so they were blasting stuff like the Cars first album, and whatever, probably some of the Dead and Sabbath and Charlie Daniels Band or whatever. Lots of Styx, I remember. Alan Parsons Project. And so and then I got all their records when they didn't want them anymore. So I was playing the Beatles and the Beach Boys and whatever else I could get. And then I remember one time they changed it up on me a little bit. I think they bought me a Human League cassette, and I was like, I don't know what that's about, but and like Men at Work and Huey Lewis and all this stuff the little kid likes. Billy Idol, I think, was a game changer back then. And then I didn't have any older brother to get me into any of the harder music for a long time. So I think the first time I really liked heavy music was probably because I saw Twisted Sister and Ozzy and to me, Sabbath were just a kind of a hippie band because my parents were hippies, and I didn't understand that there was more going on there yet, and it was probably just like we'd listen to an album and then it would just change over to the next one. They weren't like, this is important, you need to pay attention to this. And same thing happened with Zeppelin. I didn't really like Zeppelin for a long time because I didn't like Robert Plant's voice, and I thought it was just hippie music, Later on in life, I went back to revisit all that stuff, and I learned a lot.
Was there like any early records that like were game changers? Like you said, Rubber Soul.
Rubber Soul was absolutely a game changer for me. I think, and even the first, even the John Lennon solo record, right when he died, that was kind of a big deal in my household because my parents loved him, and I remember my mom crying, and we just listened to that record incessantly after that, And then I don't know, as far as like really important records, it's hard to say exactly which ones. It was kind of a big mess of music, and maybe Jay Giles Band, like Bloodshot, that was a game changer for me. It was kind of like this energetic thing. I couldn't quite classify it, I remember when people were referring to stuff like Duran Duran as just being like a little bit too risque for radio, or even Prince, that kind of stuff. I remember hearing those songs and being like, oh, there's other stuff out there that's not on the radio all the time. I remember being really young and taping the American Top 40 like every week as if there was going to be a big difference. It took me a while to realize that I'm just taping the same songs over and over again.
I was actually kind of excited to have you on because I've done almost 20 episodes of this, and none of them have mentioned the first Boston album, which is
that record was a game changer. Absolutely. That playlist that we were just talking about, my Spotify playlist, had to put that as the first one on there. That 8-track was probably played more than any, that and the Cars. I think those two records were played probably more than any other records in a whole collection. And it just, that first Boston record is timeless. It brings me back to a lot of that stuff too. Brings me back to maybe 80, 81, like the Jay Giles Band and the Cars and absolutely,
and all that kind of stuff. So, but the first Boston album is
incredible, and I'll put on the second one every once in a while. It's pretty good too.
That's good.
But I remember. Fast forward a bit, but being interviewed for, I think, Boston Rock. A friend of mine was asking me questions. I think he thought he was going to stump me or make me feel foolish, and he said, well, are your lyrics pretentious? I said, well, yeah, of course they are. And he laughed. He laughed like incessantly. He just would not stop laughing. You just said your lyrics are pretentious. Yeah. Everybody's music is pretentious. Boston wasn't dancing in the streets of Hyannis.
Exactly.
They just weren't. But I feel like it's important for people to realize that, you might write a song once and play it once, and you have this really visceral, attachment to it, and maybe some of that gets brought up next time you play it. But it's never exactly the same. You're always kind of channeling something or playing a part or even the most realistic blues musician. Sure, yes, probably has a lot of heart and soul in that, but it's still pretense. They're still writing a song about like over intellectualizing something.
Yeah, definitely. What were some of the places where you would discover stuff as you got older? Like I remember MTV was
I didn't have MTV. I had V66.
Yeah.
We didn't even have a color TV until I was in high school. So I just sit there and flip around the UHF channels. And when we discovered V66, that was a big deal. Yeah. Definitely the radio. We also lived, in New Hampshire. We could still get college radio. Yeah. So as soon as we realized we could listen to college radio, that was a big deal for me and my friends. Yeah. I remember Night Flight was a big source of music for us.
That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. The first time seeing Social Distortion on there and Cro-Mags and all kinds of just movies that like The Beat with Cro-Mags in it. Another State of Mind was on there. Urga Music War. First time I ever heard Dead Kennedys was on Urga Music War. That kind of stuff was very mind expanding. I remember at the time saying, "Boy, I really hate his voice, but those guitars sound awesome." Right.
And so did you start sort of poking around into the punk and sort of alternative stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we had, me and my good friend Dave Monaghan, we would just start seeking stuff out. Went to Rocket Records. Friends at school lent me some records. I still have some of those. Had to give some of the most valuable ones back. But but that was stuff like all the early DKs, all Minor Threat, Black Flag. Just so I got this and Misfits, Earth AD, I got this just dump of all the stuff. And one of my favorites, of course, was definitely the Boston LA comp. I couldn't get enough of that one. It was just this incredibly concise gateway into what was at the time the fastest thing I'd ever heard in my entire life. Like all these bands that could really pull it off and still be interesting. I remember being really young, getting into punk rock and thinking that every band was straight edge. For some reason. Where I got that idea. But I think it's because I was introduced to Minor Threat and Black Flag and stuff first. And I kind of perceived that. And obviously it was never true. But I was, straight edge for a long time, straight until I drank. But that was a good identity to sort of hang on to for a bit
definitely.
while going through the problems of being an adolescent and coming from a household where it was good to be straight edge.
And all those, and when you think about it, all those bands on that comp, I don't think any of those were straight edge.
No,
bands.
not at all. That's
maybe John and Astis,
exactly.
from Decadence, but
and of course I perceived them all to be straight edge when I first listened to it, and then of course when I got I ended up buying the first Freeze full length, and I was like, "Oh, they're definitely not straight edge."
Oh I know, right?
Never mind. I wasn't talking to anybody who actually knew them, so I didn't have any idea. And then Rebel Reaction too. I was like, "Wow, all right." But the Freeze is definitely one of my favorites on there, and in Boston in general.
And do you remember the first punk show that you?
It was for a group called Nervous Disorders, and they played at a VFW hall in Nashua. And they were. I think they did a cover of Jim Carroll's "People Who Died."
Oh, nice.
It was definitely a unique experience because it was just a bunch of freaks in this space. Fortunately, it was all ages, but people just who I realized looked the way I dressed, and I could actually go and talk about music with them. I didn't feel like a freak. And then as soon as anybody had a license in my circle of friends, then we'd start coming down to Boston, go to shows. First big punk rock show that I went to, I guess. Well, the next one after that it wasn't big, but it was a few towns over, and it was 5 Balls of Power.
Oh yeah.
So
New Hampshire band.
Right? And guitar player ended up being in Scissor Fight.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I kind of completely forgot.
But it was also with a band called PDA, who were just like this weird hardcore punk, kind of sloppy band. Public Display of Affection. And then a really awful band called VFW, which stood for Very Fucking White.
I remember that. Well, I remember I saw that band maybe once.
Oh yeah.
I went to one show up in New Hampshire early on, and I think The Scam was one of the bands. They were great.
Yeah, they were awesome.
But I remember that VFW.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Right.
We were just little kids. We weren't about to, even bring it up with them.
Yeah,
they were big skinhead dudes compared to us,
Yeah.
But then after that, we ended up going to shows in Boston, saw I don't know, Buttle Surfers and Bad Brains and Circle Jerks at Brandeis. And
Oh, yeah,
that was the first time I ever saw Slapshot.
Yeah.
With Moving Targets. I didn't really enjoy Moving Targets at the time, but obviously I learned to like them.
Yeah.
And we were actually laughing about Slapshot because we were calling them Slapjock. We didn't realize that they were
Slapjock.
Yeah, they just seemed so jockey.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And we were, skaters or punks or whatever.
Right.
And I remember just stage diving like crazy at that show because I had no idea what it meant to do that. And I was literally just jumping off the stage and landing on the ground.
Yeah.
And it's the gymnasium at Brandeis. So you're jumping. I was probably jumping 15 feet in the air, landing on my knees and stuff. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And I remember Luke was there.
Yeah.
Glenn from Wrecking Crew was there.
Yeah.
Wrecking Machine was there.
Oh, yeah.
Lloyd was there. He got pretty badly hurt at that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a whole new world to me. I was like, whoa, wow. Fun show though.
Yeah. And then you started a zine at one point.
Yeah. So I ended up getting a job at a record store in Nashua. And around that same time, Dan McNamara and I had been talking about doing a fanzine.
Yeah.
And it worked out really well because what I couldn't get for promo from, just from writing to people and saying, please send us your records, I could usually get from the store.
Yeah.
Because I was an indie buyer too.
Yeah.
So like I remember getting the very first earache releases and stuff like that, and just being blown away that I could take the cassette out of the holder because they didn't shrink wrap them back then, and you could just listen to it and go, oh yeah, of course I want this. And I could do the same thing for people when they walked in the store.
Yeah.
So I was like this little promotion, machine, just trying to tell people about all the music.
Yeah, yeah.
And the zine was called Look Again because we really wanted to get people to sort of open their minds a little bit. We all had really eclectic tastes.
Yeah.
I think. For all 4 years or all 4 issues that we did the zine, at least one of us had like Sade on our
like
top
our
10
best
list.
Yeah.
And then probably Talk along with
they were great.
Bolt Thrower and Autopsy.
Yeah.
Hardcore and punk, whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear too, because a lot of zines kind of stayed in one thing, and if you put anything, even metal at some points, they'd be like, I don't know what,
Yep. And I've gone through purist phases in my understanding of music, and it's good to, I think, challenge that and challenge it kind of politely, so you can say, hey, well, the motto of that zine was, it doesn't suck, you just don't like it.
Yeah. And so you were able to start interviewing some of the bands that you were listening to.
Exactly. Yeah, that was nice. We once people realized that there was this whatever crappy little fanzine, and our circulation was actually halfway decent. We ended up making like 1,000 copies. People would actually send us promos, and we could actually talk to bands. I remember interviewing Neurosis at Bunratty's when they were opening for I think 5 straight edge bands.
Oh, wow.
That was funny.
Yeah.
At least they got to wrap up their gear and put it away real quick. But
I
remember talking to them out in the van, and then it was a Word is Law tour.
Oh, wow.
And they were super nice people.
Yeah.
They were actually very polite about the fact that they were opening for 5 straight edge bands, but we were like, what the hell's going on with you? Like, that is just sad,
Yeah.
But they schooled everybody, obviously, and and just proceeded to have a great career after that.
Yeah. And I think they're pretty much the same lineup, too.
Yeah, right?
At this point.
It's amazing.
And then you probably started to see, too, like in the hardcore scene, people are approachable and
absolutely,
like artists and stuff. So that's I think that was always one of the things that turned me onto it. Was
absolutely
my heroes were they weren't heroes anymore. They were just that's Choke from Slapshot. He sings in that band I like, but he's not it's not Robert Plant, who like if I saw her I'd be like So that was always a cool thing to
and I think we were talking right before we turned on the microphone about like people like Charlie Infection. Definitely, I mean, obviously to anybody outside of Boston, he might that name might not mean anything, but he was a proponent of sort of eclectic appreciation of music, and he'd always had a great collection of stuff to buy, but he was also very approachable, and he'd talk about anything.
Sweetest guy in the world.
Yeah, he's super fan about everything in his distro. He wasn't just like hawking
crap.
Right.
Oh yeah, he knew.
Yep. And Finnish hardcore and
stuff from all over the world and stuff, and so he was definitely you're right with he should be sort of one of these Boston hardcore sort of legend guys, if you want to use that word.
Right. And I mean, definitely Keith Bennett was like approachable. I couldn't believe that I could talk to the bass player. I was like, hey man, I'm psyched to see a guy with long hair, and I mean, I had a shaved head at the time, but I was like, this is great. Like just interesting to be able to relate to somebody and talk about hardcore and punk rock and metal and all at the same sentence. And when for a while, obviously, there was a lot of sort of factionalized violence, or like people did try to beat up the metalhead, or something like that, or vice versa. If a skinhead ever went to a Slayer show, forget it. Like,
yeah. He was the one that I remember when him and Greg Delaria started showing up at shows.
Totally.
And these are Boston guys that if you're from Boston, you definitely know who these guys are.
Yeah.
That's when I sort of was like, oh, it's okay to still, because I remember I sort of went from metal right to hardcore, and I was like, all right, I can't let anyone know I used to love Iron Maiden. So, but they sort of made that okay, and then the music started sort of mixing too, and that was sort of a great period of music, I think.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of metal that I didn't enjoy because it was too operatic, or I didn't understand like why they were wasting so much time with those guitar solos, that kind of thing. So,
right.
It also gave me a chance to talk to people who had a much better understanding of what good metal was.
Yeah.
I mean, if I put on an Exciter record back then, I was like, oh, this is horrible.
Right.
But then when I was able to talk to people like the dudes in Formicide about those guys, we talked to them mainly because of the fanzine and stuff like that. We were reviewing their tapes and they appreciated it. But you could talk to them at a show, and then, when I had a discussion about Holy Terror or something like that, they were like, they know it.
Yeah.
Oh, they came from Agent Steel and blah blah blah. Wow, nice to have some context for my appreciation for this record.
Right. And so you ended up starting to play music at one point.
That's actually. I guess somewhat related to that last point. So I was in a band with some dudes up in New Hampshire who I used to go to their shows all the time just because they had some good riffs and stuff.
Right.
They were kind of almost like a death metal band. They were called Blind Surgeon. They used to play with Atomicost, and they played with Formicide and stuff. Similar circles.
Yeah.
And they asked me to sing on one of their tapes. And really good dudes. I just didn't like the name of the band, and I wanted to leave because of that.
Right.
We did record one demo, and it didn't get released, but it's been traded a lot.
Yeah.
And then after that, band split up. We played a couple shows actually. This is also related to the record store I worked at because. The guy wanted to do some promo for his record store, so he pulled up a flatbed truck in the middle of Seminole Plaza in Nashua. And
really?
Yeah, all the old folks came out with their lawn chairs and stuff, and they it was a free concert.
Nice.
And it was us and hearing impaired.
Oh, wow.
Blind Surgeon and hearing impaired. So like anybody who rode a skateboard or had a tattoo or long hair, short hair, whatever, it was just every freak in the city and surrounding area came to that show because they just didn't have shows.
Yeah.
So that went well, and one of the dudes from Formicide had actually seen me at that and said so that was Kevin Stevenson from the Shods and stuff. He was also in Formicide. When he told his brother, hey, we should check out this kid for maybe vocals, Eric said, yeah, why don't you come down and bring the Blind Surgeon demo. So we went down to the Stevensons' house and just popped the cassette in their player, and before the first song had even really gotten underway, they're like, oh yeah, you're in the band. So nice. We started to play together, and I learned a lot from those guys because they were obviously actual musicians, and
right.
Like we could it was like a total education for me. Pushed my limits quite a bit because I didn't have any training. I just had a lot of interest in making music, and I loved music, and I just wanted it to happen. But I mean, that back then I would just yell so hard I couldn't breathe. I would end up with bloody noses from practice and stuff just from not breathing properly.
Right. Yeah, that was going to be my question if you had ever had training, because vocals on the Only Living Witness stuff is great. And,
appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's that just was trial and error.
Yeah. Did you play any instruments or anything? Or
not well enough to play them on stage. I pick something up and plunk away at it and maybe like get some ideas for something, but I have always deferred to the musicians as far as like playing, because I feel like you make better music when you can listen to each other, and if you had one person that is kind of driving everything, it can be I tend to be very opinionated, and I knew that if I had a guitar in my hand and I wanted to write a song, I might start telling people how to write songs, and I'd rather get their input. You make a much stronger product when the end result is much stronger when you get more input, you get more information in there. So I'd rather collaborate. and sometimes that can be difficult, but
Yeah.
it definitely you end up with a better product. And ironically, it's helped me in my actual like work life, because that's kind of what I do now, is get people to listen to each other and you know, not freak out because we're all working towards a similar goal.
Right. And so this would have been the beginning of Only Living Witness.
Exactly, yeah. So Witness formed around late 89, 90, early 90, and we used to practice in Wally World up in Lowell.
Yeah.
And practice right next to Cardinal Sin. A few other bands were in there. And then, let's see. Yeah, we did a demo, sent it around because a lot of contacts I had from the fanzine and stuff. And then I moved to a different record store, Slip Disc. That's where had another like really fun time with a bunch of really great people sitting around listening to music all the time.
I was one. I worked there. I think I might have taken your job after.
Cool.
I started there in '96, I think. Maybe.
Oh, okay. I left there in '92, I think.
Yeah. All right. So it was.
But that was a
great shop,
incredible shop. Yeah. Ron Crawford's an amazing person, and he really also helped me a lot. Just personally, like just as a boss, he was a really good boss, but also like with the band, he actually paid for the second Witness demo to get recorded and duplicated. Or I think we paid for the recording and he paid for the duplication. And
is that the yellow one?
Yeah. So it was officially on Slip Disc Records.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, and he was totally cool about it. You know, he just once he got his money back, he was happy, and it also helped to get people maybe come to the shop because he was the first place that had the tape. So got a bunch of people brought in there to buy it, and then. When we ended up recording the album, we sent that out, and Century Media sent us. They wanted to sign us, and we signed with them. And like the first time I got the rough mixes back, or actually the final mixes, it was in that store, and one of my friends, Bob, Robbie from Brown, he was actually in the store, and he listened to the whole album, sitting in the back of the store. I was like, that. I felt really good about just going through that process of the demo, being a demo band, and then all of a sudden we have a full length album, and I'm still working at this record store. I get to play it for my friends. That was cool.
And you guys were playing hardcore shows and metal shows?
We kind of played a mix, and we never quite fit in perfectly anywhere. So that was fun and challenging, and right in line with the whole mindset from Look Again for me. Just kind of breaking down barriers if possible. One of my favorite shows we played was Prong and COC.
At the Channel, right?
Yeah, Channel. Volta was supposed to play, and they dropped off the bill, so we got bumped up. We got our set to start later. Yeah. And as a result, there were a lot more people there, and that really helped us out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that might have been the first time I saw you.
Okay, yeah.
I was working at Rocket Records.
Yep.
And Chris, the bass player, used to come in there all the time.
Nice,
I think he lived in Melrose,
yep,
maybe.
Exactly.
And he had sort of turned me on to you guys. And
nice.
So, but yeah, that was a great show.
Yeah. Speaking of Rocket, that was actually the place where we went to get most of our punk rock, like almost exclusively was Rocket.
Nashua.
Nashua. When I was like, whatever, between ages, late like 15 and whatever, 20.
Yeah.
And I guess then we come to Boston, but like. I remember talking to Dale at Rocket. He was a huge resource, and he's like, if you like that one, you like the Misfits, you should check out this Naked Raygun band. I was like, okay.
Yeah. And then RR Records in Lowell.
In Lowell, yeah. So his hours were so weird.
Yeah.
We would go down there, and he had an incredible collection, and he's just really knowledgeable. We liked a lot of like people would call it like power electronics or whatever, but early industrial noise, that kind of stuff, and experimental music. And he turned us on to a ton of stuff with that. But his hours are so weird. You have to get there on a Thursday between 1 and 3, and then he's just not open any other day because he didn't feel like opening up.
Right.
But that was another great place to go get some good music. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Witness went on you guys did another record after.
Yeah, we did a couple records. The second record came out actually after our breakup. We broke up in '95, and then we did a couple tours of Europe. That was great. We did one tour with Cro-Mags, one with Leeway.
Yeah.
Hit about 15 countries. That was a fun time. And then, so after that band broke up, immediately jumped into playing with Daryl Shepard, and I also was playing with some other folks, Rob Delaney and Brian McTurnan, and Jay Canava. We were playing as Milltown. Although initially we didn't have a drummer for either band, but I was writing songs with both bands, and I got approached by Warner Brothers to sign this guy, Larry Jacobson.
Yeah.
He wanted to help me get away from Century Media, so we negotiated something. And basically he said, whichever band gets a drummer first, or whoever you want to be on the label, we'll just sign that band. So that was really cool. And then Milltown found a drummer first, and we recorded one. We recorded a bunch with Brian. We did a bunch of demos with Brian because he was a really good engineer, and I wish they would have let us record our album with Brian, but they didn't want that to happen. So we ended up doing a full length. We recorded out at Longview Farm. That was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
That's where Eye Against Eye was recorded, and it's where the Rolling Stones practiced for Tattoo You.
Oh wow!
That was like when they played out at what was it called, the bar in Worcester.
When the Stones played there?
Yeah, the Stones played.
Oh, they did like a surprise thing.
Yeah, but it's because they were practicing at Longview Farm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was a really good experience. I learned a lot about making music and recording music, and that I like how the record came out, but the label, quote unquote, typical story, didn't hear a hit. So, So we scrapped that, and I was a professional musician for about 90 days. No, maybe 3 months. 3 months. We practiced for it, recorded. We were out there recording for like a month and a half.
Yeah.
And then I immediately went back to my job at Harvard. I was like, that's not the life for me, man.
And that record got tied up, and it was never
the thing
able
is,
to be released or something.
To make a long story short and not open myself up to any lawsuits, the engineer that we were working with was pretty much in cahoots with the record label, and they told us as much, but not necessarily with the people that we were friends with at the record label.
Right.
So in essence, we recorded 18 songs. He only mixed 10.
Yeah.
That was the bare minimum to get out of his contract.
Yeah.
And when it was time to, he wanted to get paid, and he was supposed to get paid $65,000.
Yeah.
And I only authorized $35,000 because I figured he didn't finish his job. So so. From what I can tell, he seems to have made the original tapes disappear. All my friends that were at the label and know anything about how to find them, they're not in the vaults as far as just completely erased.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
people are
stuff.
vindictive.
Yeah.
We got DAT copies of those 10 songs. So that's sort of what's been circulating.
Yeah.
Never got properly mixed, but
yeah, you can. A lot of that stuff's on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Which is good enough. That's cool with me.
Yeah.
By the way, I live right near a fire station. That's
that's cool. But so Milligram, I didn't realize. So Milligram was kind of going on at the same time. As
we
Milltown?
wrote My Own Private Altamont was the first song we wrote together.
Yeah.
Me and Daryl did that an acoustic version.
Oh, really?
I think I have acoustic versions
wow.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that's never been released or anything.
No. It was literally just me and Daryl, so it was kind of it's kind of scrappy,
That's one of my maybe top 5 Boston songs by a Boston band.
That's great.
So I didn't realize it was an acoustic.
Yeah, if I find that, I'll give you a
awesome.
copy. Yeah. So the Milligram thing was really fun because I really, speaking about going back to work at Harvard, right? I just wanted to get away from that whole professional music business thing, and it was great to go back to working with Daryl and just so down to earth and we ended up getting Bob Maloney in the band, and that was awesome, and getting Zephin in the band, that was just incredible. It was like a really cool unit. At a certain point, we wanted to make sort of more abrasive music, so we ended up getting Jeff Turlick on bass. Mm-hmm. That worked well, and then we put out a couple records there, and let's see. I guess that was it for Milligram.
Yeah. And you guys did the on the second record. It was the second one that had the EP with a bunch of covers on it that are great.
Oh yeah, right. So that was the first record. It was the second release of the first record.
Yeah.
Hello, Motherfucker. It had a companion CD originally, and then it got reissued in France, and everything got put together on one CD. So there's a red one and a blue one.
Yeah.
I was happy with those covers. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Came out well.
Yeah, definitely. And so both of those bands did reunions too, and Witness and
Witness did a reunion, and Milligram did a reunion shows. Those went well, definitely.
Yeah, it was good.
The Middle East staff were funny. They were talking about how literally 2 weeks before the Witness show, the Jonahs brothers had played at the Middle East downstairs, and that was sold out as well.
Yeah,
and I think it was Dick at the Middle East, and he was saying. that there was literally half the mass of human beings.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was a bunch of like 14-year-old girls, but it was still sold out based on the numbers. But for our show, of course, the room was literally full of people.
Yeah. It was hot.
It was a bunch of 40-year-old dudes.
That was a good night.
Yeah, it was fun.
The one I saw, and then the Milligram shows were great. I saw you do the Caius reunion out in Worcester.
Oh right, yeah, that was fun too. That was a really good show. Those guys are very nice.
Yeah, and then the Great Scott one that I saw was great, and
that was a good time. Yeah, we again loved playing with those guys. So I feel very lucky that we got to make that music. Those I think the Milligram stuff is some of my favorite that I've ever made, mainly because of associations I have with just good friends. You know.
Yeah.
It's funny. I have a camp up in Vermont, and Zeph ended up getting some land up there too, and he just moved up there. He's about 20 minutes away. We're both pretty much next to the Canadian border up there.
Oh, nice. Oh, that far up. Nice. Nice. And you did a label called Tractor 7 for a little bit.
Yep, Tractor 7 was fun. Definitely the brainchild of Mario Travers, the guitar player for Rawradarwar. He got he wanted to have a record label, and Frank from Peanut Brothers Inc. Had some money he wanted to use to help promote his shop, so he's like, let's do a record label. And
nice.
Initially I wanted to do it all vinyl. I wish we could have done that, but people wanted to put out some CDs and stuff. But we ended up doing some really good records. Lamont and Crash and Burn, put out Milligram on there. A few other things. Throttle was one of our later releases. Really happy with what's that?
Blacktails.
Yeah, Blacktail. I love that record. Yeah, totally. And we had a compilation I was really happy about. That's the one thing I want to make sure gets onto YouTube. I had been holding off on it because I was hoping all the different bands would just do it on their own. But I've been bugged by a few people saying, hey, how can we not put all that Tractor 7 stuff up on the web? I was like, well, you guys owned it. Right. I didn't want to presume, but I've had enough requests that I think I might just do that.
Yeah. And then you have your current band still is Rawradarwar.
Yeah.
Been around for a while now.
Yeah, we're it's been taking us a long time because of many tribulations in everybody's lives. But, it's going well, and I'm really, really happy with how it's coming together. We're going to have a session coming up soon on which Glenn from Temporary Insanity is going to sing on a couple songs, and
nice.
Ben from Sam Black Church is going to play guitar on a couple songs too.
Oh wow!
So
nice.
Nice to have old friends collaborate.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I always sort of felt. That's what Rawradarwar is, like a group of like really close friends that have just been doing this music and at your own pace. And
most of us met while we were teenagers, and we have been friends, in some configuration or another, all this time, and it's just great to, it's mostly just getting together, play some music, and enjoy the company of people that are like-minded. And when we do play a show, it's like not an ordeal, Not that it was always an ordeal with other bands, but sometimes when you're playing with people that are not necessarily they weren't friends first, it's a little bit more complex.
Yeah. So you guys are kind of selective about shows.
We are definitely. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of bands that just they like to play all the time.
Yeah,
definitely not one of those bands. I'd rather make it a special occasion kind of event.
Yeah.
The last time we played was with Crom, and we'd been waiting to play with Crom for years and years, and they were it was like hanging out with brothers. It was they're such good people.
Yeah, and that band is when I think about all the music that you've made, seems like the angriest of all of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is if a person I think of put your discography, they would maybe think it almost goes backwards if you think about it. So
yeah. I like that too. I'm really happy with that trajectory because it's vocally it's not necessarily as easy to well, in certain ways it's harder to sing.
Yeah.
In certain ways it's harder to scream.
Right.
But it certainly for me is easier to just make it percussive and not have to worry about where the note is landing.
Yeah.
Pitch isn't as much of an issue.
Yeah.
So that's why it's fun.
Yeah.
Just make some blasting noise.
Yeah.
I am in a new band that doesn't have a name, and that's much more melodic, which is also satisfying.
Yeah.
It's with Glenn, who used to be in Gangrene.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Glenn
Stilfen, nice. And so it's just you two so far.
No. And Johnny from the Scrapes.
Yeah.
And Mike, who used to be in Scratch, and Uncle Betty and Apology.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Apology. Yeah. Gitters.
Yeah. Exactly.
Nice. And so what kind of stuff is that?
That's I guess kind of post-punk stuff we've been writing is somewhere between like I mean, a little bit of Buzzcocks, a little bit of Naked Ray Gun, a little bit of Laughing Hyenas.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, maybe some Girls Against Boys influence, that kind of thing. Wire.
Yeah, that sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's not nearly as heavy as some of the bands I've been in.
Yeah.
But it's really enjoyable, the songwriting, and again, just a bunch of really awesome people that it's fun to hang out with. And
yeah, definitely.
When we collaborate, it's like fluid. It's like hanging out with friends instead of being like a job.
Yeah, yeah. And so you have music you listen to. Is there new stuff nowadays that's been moving you and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I hear things every once in a while that I love. There's this rapper from Vermont named Jarv. I think he's incredible.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have a big career, but you look at the number of listens, he's only got like 1,000 plays on YouTube or something like that, but I think he's going to be huge.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as contemporary stuff, it's difficult to nail it down right now, but I like a lot of new stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah, of course.
So cool.
All right.
Man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.